At this point in time, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the basics. During the next 2 hours, actually hour and a half to 2 hours, we're going to spend time talking about Corel and how to do 1 and 2 color designs. One of our objectives is we want to get you started learning the correct procedures to create artwork in our industry with CorelDRAW. In this training, I'll be using CorelDRAW 11, if you look up here. Now, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to show you is available for all versions of Corel, at least that I know of, from Corel 7 all the way up to Corel 13. So whatever versions you're working on, the tools that I'm going to point out today will be available somewhere. You may have to look for them. However, if I call a pick tool, which is this tool right here, a pick tool, you'll be able to, if you want to, go to Help, then go into CorelDRAW's Help, and look up pick tool, and it'll tell you where it is in Corel. So I'm not familiar with what versions that you are using. However, I know with Corel 7 through 13, all these tools are available. We'll also be teaching you a lot of the basic tools. As you can see here, here's a list of tools I'm going to try to get through today. Setting up page sizes and using snap lines, the pick tool, the zoom tool, artistic text versus paragraph text. We'll talk about points, inches, and proper text sizing, converting text to curves. We're going to talk about a program called Bitstream Font Navigator. We're going to talk about outline versus contours, using the contour tools, wireframe versus normal frame, the alignment tool, group and ungroup, break apart and combine, what is a vector image versus what is a bitmap image, and at the end we'll get to use the envelope tool. Some of the other tools we might run into are some of these tools. If we can get into them today, we will. However, most of these tools are what we consider more advanced tools, which is the next step in the learning. This is going to be a basic CorelDRAW class, which then will lead into other classes. If you haven't visited our website, please do, and you'll find all the classes that are available over approximately the next 8 classes. Okay, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to start to go over setting up what's known as the basic pages in Corel. Now, the first thing, I'm going to go back to the very first page, which talks about the golden rule of design. If you haven't learned this lesson already, it probably won't ingrain into your head until it happens to you. But you must make sure that you always save what you're working on and save it often. Many times I've spent 2 hours working on artwork, and for whatever reason, my son walks by and trips over the power cord and pulls the power cord out of the wall. I lose that 2 hours worth of work because I had forgotten to save the design. You should always start by setting up your page size, and we're going to go over that next. After you get your page set up, you should always start by save as, save the file, and then periodically, every 10 or 15 minutes, just go to File and Save to save your progress. Again, this will save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, especially if you lose a file you've been working on for quite a while. What I'm going to start doing here is I'm going to talk about the differences in what my Corel looks like compared to yours. Now, every Corel is going to start off by having this top bar that says File, Edit, View, Layout, Arrange, Effects, Bitmap, Text, Tools, Windows, and Help. This is known as the menu bar. The next one down should have what's known as like graphical representations of the different functions, like New, Open, Print, etc. This is known as the standard toolbar. Below that, you have what I call a changeable toolbar. It's actually called the property bar in Corel. And as you change tools, you'll see here with my pick tool selected and nothing selected on the screen, it allows me to change the page size and different items that are available for the page size. If I change to my zoom tool, which is the third one down on the left, you'll see that the bar changes to all the tools that are available for zooming in and out or to page, etc., etc. I'm going to go back to my pick tool again. Another box is this toolbox right here. This should be on your page as a normal box. At the bottom you'll see what's known as the status bar. When you select an object, it'll give you information about that object, width and height, what it is. In this case, I've selected a rectangle that's on layer 1, and what the colors are. On the right-hand side, if you're using Dockers, you will get what's known as the Docker window, which allows you to have different shortcuts to things like Object Manager, shaping tools like trim, intersect, and weld, the artistic mode, which allows you to use different types of lines or drawings on your lines, and a whole lot more. To the right of the Docker area, you've got what's known as the color palettes. You can have, in versions at least 9 through 13, multiple color palettes available to you at any one time. To access your color palettes, if you go under Window, Color Palettes, you can turn them off and turn them on here. The next thing you may notice that might be different from you, I have some extra toolbars. In this case, I've got a toolbar that I've created right here, another toolbar that I've created right here, and I've taken the zoom tools and put them into a separate toolbar. Now these are quick tools that I use all the time. Instead of, for example, let me redock the toolbar I have here, which is Simple Wireframe and Enhanced. Now, instead of, if I want to see something in Wireframe, going up to View, Wireframe, I can simply click on these two buttons right here that I've created. Also, I've created some tools that are not available to you on the property bar, this bar right here, when you do certain things. And we'll talk more about that when we get to that point. So I have created these shortcut bars by right mouse clicking on an already existing toolbar, choose Customize, choose Standard Toolbar, choose Add New Command. Once you open that window up, you'll see that you have a whole list of different commands that are available. I'm quickly going to create this one right here, which allows me to go to Wireframe and go to Enhanced. If I go to the commands, just like you see up above, File, Edit, View, if I go to View, I will have the command for Normal View, you'll see it right here, and Wireframe. If I click and hold with my left mouse button and drag out to the page, it will create a new toolbar for me. I can then add Enhanced to that toolbar. When I've done creating the toolbar, I can click on OK, which will save the toolbar for me. And then I can dock it anywhere I want. I can even leave it freely on my page if I'd like. So I'll dock this one right here. So that's how you would go about creating your own toolbars that you'd like to use for what I call same processes over and over again without too many clicks. To get rid of a toolbox, simply click on the X, and your toolbox will go away. Now let's get into setting up our page size. When I'm creating in Corel, I like to set up a page size which works best for me. In most cases, for people who are screen printers or embroiderers or working in a small sign vinyl shop, what's known as an 11-inch by 17-inch piece of paper normally works for just about everything you're doing. So I like to set up my page for 11 by 17. You can do that by making sure that nothing is selected. So I usually click off the page. Then the first bar that comes up right here allows you to choose several different settings. The 11 by 17 setting is called Tabloid. I'll click on Tabloid. Now I like to rotate the page. Instead of being vertical, I like it to be horizontal, or in this case landscape. I'll click on the button for landscape. I'll make sure my units are set to inches. And I like to change my nudge to 0.01. What that allows me to do is, when I want to move an object on the screen, on the keypad you've got an up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, right arrow. So whichever button you press will move the design that way. Now I find that, I'm going to click off now so nothing is selected. When it's set to 0.1, the nudge for the things that I do is just too much. It moves too far. So what I'm going to do is put in 0.01, click off the page so nothing is selected. Now what happens when I move this, it moves it about 1/10 less the space. I don't know if you could see that, but it was a very small movement. Now, if I want to make the big jump that I did before, I'll hold my Shift key and hit one of those arrows, and it'll make a large movement. 10 times the amount of what I have in, or 0.1. So I'm going to review that one more time for you. I set my page size up to tabloid, which is 11 by 17. I rotated it to landscape. I then made sure my units were set to inches, and I changed my nudge to 0.01. Now, if I want this page to come up each and every time, I want to set it as a default. To do that, I go up to Tools, choose Options. On the left-hand side, I'm going to click on Document. When I click on Document, I'm going to put a check mark in Save Options as default for new documents, and then click on OK. Now, when I start a new page, I'm going to close this page that I'm working on. And now when I go to New Page, I can go to File and New. It'll bring up a page that's set, just like we set it. Tabloid, Landscape, my units are set to inches, and my nudge is set to 0.01. So that's how you set up a page size, and that's how you can save the page size in order to bring it up again as a default page size. The next thing I'm going to move on to is setting up of guidelines. I like to set up certain guidelines which allow me to make sure things are centered on the page. And to do that, I'll go over to the left-hand ruler. I'll click and hold with my left mouse button and drag a snap line out to approximately 17.5. I'm sorry, half of 17, which is 8.5. I'll then go to the top ruler. I'll bring down another snap line to approximately 5.5. Now, if I want to make sure that I'm precise in my measurements, I can double-click on the snap lines, and it'll bring me to a place where I can put in exactly what I want. For example, I thought this was 8.5, but it's not. It's actually almost 9 inches. So I want it set to 8.5. I'll type in 8.5. I'll click on Add. It'll put that snap line exactly at 8.5 inches. And I'll select the other one and delete it, and it'll get rid of that line that I don't want. While I'm here, on the left-hand side, I'll click on Horizontal. Make sure I'm set to 5.5, which I am. And I'll click on OK. What this gives me is exact snap lines dividing my page exactly in half in the horizontal and the vertical position. Another couple of snap lines that I like to have are I like to have a horizontal snap line at 0. So I'll put one at 0, click on Add, and then I'll place one at 1.5 inches, 1.5, Add. Click on OK. What these two snap lines do at the bottom is allow me to produce a vertical arch rising up from the bottom about 1.5 inches. And later on today I'm going to explain how to do that so that you can create your own vertical arches. Now what we've just gone through are setting up of guidelines. I'm going to show you a couple of features that allow you to do things with your snap lines that you may not be aware of. I'm simply going to draw a rectangle at this time. Choose my pick tool. And if I wanted to center this or put it in the corner, you can see as I get closer it's a little bit tough to line up exactly on those lines that we've created. Let me zoom in so this is a little easier to see. An easier way to get this to jump to a snap line is under View, we've got Snap to Guidelines. Now when you take the rectangle and move it down near the snap lines, you're going to see it automatically jump and show you that it's lined up exactly with the snap lines. Now I only turn this on when I want to use it because sometimes it can be annoying if you have too many snap lines trying to line up exactly. But again, I'll turn it off now. If you go to View, you can turn it on and off by clicking on Snap to Guidelines. Another feature that people like to use for design is what's known as a grid. If you go back to View, you can turn on your grid by clicking right here. And what that does is it gives people a grid that they can work on. In this case, it's set up for 1/4 inch. So they can estimate size and they can make sure things are exactly the size that they want them to be. In this case, I'll move the box over so it's exactly on 1/4 inch. To turn that on and off, again, you go to View and click on Grid. Consequently, you can do the same thing with the snap lines if you want to remove the snap lines. Those are a quick couple of features that should help you in designing your designs when you're creating. The next thing I'm going to talk about is I'm going to go into creating text. To create text, there's two ways that you can create text. Some people who are used to Illustrator are used to creating what's known as paragraph text. This text tool right here is your artistic text tool. If you click on it, go to your page, and at this point if you click and drag, you're going to create what's known as a paragraph text box. You can type things in. I'm going to type in the word Michigan. And you can change text freely like you would anything else. I've selected the pick tool. I'm going to change this to Arial Black. And I'm going to make it 36 points. Now, you'll notice that when I make it 36 points, I have no way of knowing exactly what size that is. And you'll see some of the tools that I've given you actually show you things like what the height and the width are. Now this is a toolbox that I've created, and you can create like I showed you in the beginning. The scaling percentage, my proportional scaling, my rotation, my mirror buttons. As you see, when you use text, those types of tools are not available to you when you're using text. That don't come up in this changeable toolbar, or what's known as the property bar. Okay, so that's why I've created this toolbox to allow me to see actual height and width and allow me to do things like rotate, proportionally size, and mirror. Now, if I take paragraph text the way it is and I want to mirror it, you'll see that when I mirror it, let me rotate this now back to 0. It didn't mirror it. It still left it in the position of a normal view. Paragraph text is not the text that you want to use on a daily basis. Okay, I showed you how you create it by selecting the text tool, the artistic text tool, clicking on your page, holding with the left mouse button, and dragging, and that creates a text box. This is not how you want to create your text to work with. What we're going to do here is we're going to create the same text utilizing what's known as the artistic text tool. It's the same tool, the big A on the left hand side. However, when you choose the tool, click once on the page, you're going to get a cursor. You can then type what you want. You can change text like we did last time. We'll choose Arial Black again, and we'll change it to 36 points. As you can see, it looks exactly the same as the paragraph text, but in this case, you can mirror it. Now I'm going to go the long way to mirror. If you go under Arrange, I believe. Well, there is no easy way to mirror. You don't have just a button that says mirror. That's why you'll want to create this shortcut. Okay? So, I'm going to again click on Michigan, click on mirror. Now you'll notice that it's an exact mirror representation of what I want. I'm going to undo that. Go to Edit, Undo. Now, at this point, with the word Michigan like this, you'll see down at the bottom, on the bar called the status bar, it says Artistic Text. If I choose the other Michigan, it says Paragraph Text. Like I said, we do not want to create things in paragraph text. However, if for some reason you have accidentally created it in paragraph text, sometimes it's a whole couple of sentences, you can convert that to paragraph text by going up to Text, Convert to Artistic Text, the reason why it turned it upside down and mirrored it is because we had told the paragraph text to mirror and we didn't undo it. So let me put this back to where it belongs, and you'll see, the use of these tools that really aren't available. Rotate, this is why you need to create this shortcut bar. Okay, so now that we've changed the paragraph text to artistic text, again, as you've seen, we can now mirror it, rotate it, and do everything we need to do to it. So again, if you have paragraph text under Tools, under Text, you're going to have something that says Convert to Artistic Text. In this case, it says Convert to Paragraph Text because it's already artistic text. Hopefully, what we just went over was how to create text using the Artistic Text tool, using the Paragraph Text tool, which I would strongly caution you not to use because it doesn't give you the full availability of all the tools in Corel to do what you need to do. And you can tell what your text is by looking down at the status bar when you're creating. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do in our training session is I'm going to change this all to capital letters. I just highlight through by double-clicking, and when you double-click on your design, in this case artistic text, It'll treat it like a word processor. You can go through and you can edit everything, and I'm going to change it now. Typing in the word Michigan. And we're going to change the text now to a text called Indiana Solid. Now, for those of you who are looking for a good block letter, this is a great block style of lettering, as you can see. And what I want to do is I want to change this lettering now so that it's about 2 inches tall and 11 inches wide. Now, if this toolbar was not available to me, showing me the width and the height, it would be very difficult using the provided toolbar because these are known as points, and they don't indicate exactly what 77.182 is in inches. In this case, the height is about 0.714, which is 3/4 of an inch. So, I'm going to turn off proportional scaling, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to change the width to 11 inches and the height to 2 inches. Now, how do we know that this is exactly 2 inches by 11 inches? Some people, I'm going to make a couple of changes here. I am going to copy, actually I'm going to duplicate this word. You can go to Edit and go to Duplicate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this back to the font called Arial Black. I'm also going to duplicate it one more time. I'm going to use the shortcut keys now on my keyboard of Control D. And I'm going to change this into upper and lower case. I should say back to upper and lower case because this is where we started. Now, what we're going to talk about is exact sizing. We made this one 2 inches by 11. However, we duplicated it and created this from that using a different type style, and it's actually almost 2 1/4 by 14. If you look up here, you'll see those numbers. And using the same font, but yet in upper and lower case, you'll see that it's almost 12 inches by 2 3/4. Now, how can something that we started off with at 2 inches tall by 11 inch wide be all these different types? It has to do with fonts, the size of fonts, the upper and lower cases of fonts, and knowing what people call cap height. When somebody says to you, I'd like a 2-inch number or letter, they're usually talking about the cap height, and that's the height of a capital letter. If we take the upper and lower case in Michigan and we set that for 2 inches tall and 11 inches wide, you're not actually getting something that's 2 inches tall by 11 inches wide. If we bring a snap line down and we put that snap line at the top of the design, we bring another snap line down and we take it to the bottom of the design. Do the same from left to right. Inside the box that you've created is 2 inches by 11 inches. The font itself, however, when we talk about height of fonts, we are talking about cap height, the capital letter. Please allow me to zoom in to that capital letter. If we draw a box using our rectangle tool, from the top of the M to the bottom of the M, This letter, by choosing my pick tool, is actually only about 1.5 inches tall. Even though we told the design to be 2 inches tall. If you check here, click on the word, it says it's 2 inches tall. The cap height, which is what everybody usually talks about when they're talking about height, is only 1.5 inches. So, when you're creating your text and somebody says to you, I want it to be 2 inches tall, start out by typing in all capital letters like you see in the word in the capitalized Michigan. Then, when you get this to be 2 inches tall, let's again do 11 inches by 2 inches. Let's bring down our snap lines for top and bottom. And let's zoom in to the M, I, C, and H. You'll see that the letter style is actually based on a 2-inch tall capital C, from the top of the C to the bottom of the C. The capital M and the capital I, even though we know that using cap height means 2 inches in cap height, are a little bit shorter than the font that has a rounded curve for like the C's, the O's, all those types of letters. So when you're talking cap height, you're actually looking at a capital letter O, capital letter C, capital letter S, something that has rounded edges. So even though we did take the effort to make this 2 inches tall, the capital letters that are cut off, the M, the I, the H, are going to be just a little bit shorter than 2 inches. To finish getting this now 2 inches by 11 inches, we know we're at 2 inches tall. So now if we highlight using the text tool the word Michigan, and now that everything's at the cap height of 2 inches tall, we type in lowercase Michigan, I-C-H-I-G-A-N, choose our pick tool again. We know we're 2 inches tall for the cap height, but now we need the width of 11. So without changing the height, even though the cap height says 2.5 inches tall because of this lowercase g, we leave that alone and we only change the width to 11. I type in 11, press enter. I now have a design which has a cap height of 2 inches tall and 11 inches wide, even though the G is going below the line. Again, why? Because when people talk about height, they talk about capital letters, and that's the way you want to create your lettering, based on capital letters. In our original design, using Indiana Solid, 2 inches by 11, everything is in capital height. So again, we have a design that is 2 inches by 11, based on cap height, but we're in all capital letters. So I'm going to go ahead now. Hopefully you understand the difference between 2-inch cap height and giving you a true sizing of your design being 2 inches wide, 11 inches tall, based on cap height of 2 inches. I'm going to remove the examples that I use and the extra snap lines that I use to demonstrate size for you. Okay, get rid of this one and this one. Now, this is my finished size, which is 2 inches tall, 11 inches wide. I'm now going to center this in my page using a tool called Align and Distribute. You'll find it under Arrange, Align and Distribute. And in Corel 11, 12, and 13, you have a shortcut called Center to Page. And when you click on that, you'll see it centers the image left and right, top and bottom, to your page. At this point, most people think that they're finished with the design. I like to take it one step further. Reason being is I want a design that I can give to people or send to people that does not allow them to need a font. Now, we use the font Indiana Solid for this. Some people don't have Indiana Solid on their computer. You have two choices. You can either convert this to curves so that there's no font available, or when you send the file to them, you have to send the font to them as well so they can install the font to open your file. I choose to convert things to curves. But I still like the idea of being able to make changes to this text if I need to. So I'm actually going to create two pages with two different files. I'm going to come down to the bottom left-hand corner. I'm going to click on the plus sign, and I'm going to create a second page. I'm going to go back to the first page. I'm going to copy this design. Go to Edit, go to Copy, click on page 2. I'm going to go to Edit and Paste. Now what this gives me is two pages with artistic text on the page. I'm going to go back to page 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose that text. I'm going to go to Arrange and Convert to Curves. Now, in the bottom of your page, on the status bar, it tells you that you have a curve on layer 1, which means there's no text involved with this design. However, it looks exactly like page 2. When you select it, it says that it has artistic text Indiana Solid on layer 1. I then want to save the design. So I go to File and Save, or actually File and Save As, give it a name, put it where I want it, and save the design this way. Now, if I send this out to someone to either cut for me or make for me, they're going to have two pages. One page, page 1, is going to be converted to curves so that they can use it for whatever they need to use it for. But page 2 is still artistic text, so if I've made a spelling error or I need to change it for another college or something like that, I have the text ready for me to go ahead and edit and change to whatever it is that I want. In this case, I'll highlight through it, change it to Ohio. Now, Ohio has less letters than Michigan. However, it's still based on the original size, which is 2 inches tall, 11 inches wide, so all the letter sizing is still the same. So I can use this on a template if I decide to. So I can do all of the different names that I want based on 2 inches by 11 and still be able to do what I need to do. Hopefully everything that we've just discussed is understood. If not, please give us a call, or if you'd like to join our chat room and go ahead and leave us a chat that way, we'll get back to your questions at the end of the seminar. I'm going to move on now to fonts. I'm going to talk a little bit about fonts, and I want to share with you a program that comes with CorelDRAW called Bitstream Font Navigator. I'm going to switch over now to Bitstream Font Navigator, and we're going to talk about fonts. Now, fonts are a very important part of Corel and your design process because almost everything we do today requires a font of some sort. And we need to be able to view these fonts and pick the fonts out that we need to use. CorelDRAW, and I think it goes all the way back to version 7, comes with a program called Bitstream Font Navigator. And this is a great program which allows you to view fonts without installing fonts. You can also install fonts from here. You can delete fonts. You can remove fonts, and you can view fonts. And I'm going to go over that basically with you and how to use this program. One of the first things that you're going to want to do before you start using this program is you're going to want to copy your font directory. Now that can be found on your CorelDRAW CDs. And I believe that in CorelDRAW 9, for example, it's on CD number 1. There's an actual directory called Fonts. I know on CorelDRAW 11, it's on CD number 2. Corel 13 is on CD number 3. And what you're going to do is you will use a program that comes with Windows called I just drew a blank. Explorer. Windows Explorer. You're going to put your CD into your computer. You're going to copy the directory called Fonts from your CD to your C drive. And if we take a look through Font Navigator, and I choose my C drive, I have a directory on the C drive called Fonts. This is where all the fonts are that I've loaded onto my computer. Now, I've had different types of fonts from different areas. I'll go to the ones that I use quite commonly. But your CD will have a list of fonts on it in the font directory that you're going to copy to your C drive. And this is very important because if you don't copy it to your C drive and you install a font through Font Navigator and you don't have the CD in your CD-ROM drive, it will not be able to find that font to use. So by copying them to your hard drive, they're always available for your Font Navigator to use, and you don't have to worry about remembering to put the CD in. Now let's go over Bitstream Font Navigator a little bit, and let's talk about the ease of use and what it is used for. Now, Bitstream Font Navigator shows you on the left-hand side here all the fonts that are available to you. Now, CorelDRAW comes with roughly 800 to 1,000 fonts. Depending on which version of Corel you have will depend upon how many fonts you get with Corel. You do not want to install all those fonts onto your hard drive. Installing is different than copying a font directory to your hard drive. When you install a font, that means that it's installed in Windows, and Windows utilizes that font for every program that is available. The limit of installed fonts, and if you look here on my Font Navigator, you'll see I've got 367 fonts that are actually installed. How do I know which fonts are installed? On the left-hand side, when you see a check mark, for example, in this case it's next to Aardvark, Aardvark is installed on my computer. You'll see there's no check mark next to Aiken because it's not installed on my computer. I have 367 fonts installed on my computer system. Corel and Windows recommends that you stay below 400 fonts at any one time loaded on your system. Now, your computer's not going to explode if you have over 400, but your computer will start slowing down. When the computer starts up, it'll take longer to start up. When you're trying to access fonts through Corel or Office or any other program, it slows down your ability to work in those programs. So try to limit yourself to less than 400 fonts installed on your system. Now, From inside of Font Navigator, let's say you have over 400, it's easy to remove fonts by selecting the font that you want to get rid of. You can press the delete key on your keyboard, and that will get rid of it. Or right mouse click, choose uninstall fonts. That'll take it off your system. You notice now I've gone down to 366. You'll notice the check mark has come off Aardvark as well, meaning that it's no longer installed on my system, but it is available. If I click on Aardvark, I can still see a preview of what it looks like. If I want to install Aardvark onto my system, I can simply, on the left-hand side here where it shows me all the fonts, right mouse click, choose Install Fonts, and it'll put it back on. You can also drag and drop. I'll do that with Aiken. Left mouse click, hold, move over to the installed font area, let go, and it'll install Aiken for me. You'll see also a check mark indicating that it's installed. You also have down here in your font sample area, most people will start out with, let me see if I can do this, there we go, this font listed, or this text listed for a font. It basically says the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog or something like that. There it is. Okay. And this is the default text. So you get a good sampling of what the letter style looks like. So I'm going to use my keyboard and my downward arrows, and I'm going to start scrolling through the different fonts that are available, and you'll start to see how you can easily view different fonts and how they look. But in this case, we want to try to match the font for Michigan. To do that, I want to see the word Michigan. I want to make sure the letters match up. So in the font sample area, if I right mouse click, I can click on Change Sample Text. I can type in anything I want. In this case, we'll type in Michigan. Hit enter. And now I can get previews that simply only say Michigan if I'm looking for a specific letter style. Now, if it's too small to see, which on your monitors it might be, you can increase the size so it's easier to see. Again, in the font sample area, right mouse click, choose sample size, and you can choose from different sizes that are available. I'll usually go up to about 48 point. And then I can get a good view of what the font looks like. Continuing to use my downward arrows, I can see what different type styles look like. In this case, I'm going to save some scrolling, and I'm going to go down already to Indiana Solid, and we'll do some downs. When I find something that looks like what I want, again, in this case it's installed, but I can drag and drop. Let's take a look at another font style that's available called Indiana. You'll notice it's got a two-color look, a foreground and a background. And if I wanted to install this font, I simply click with my left mouse button, drag and drop, and now Indiana is installed on my computer. I've now jumped up to 370 fonts that are installed on my computer. If I didn't want it on there, I could simply select the font, press delete on my keyboard. It's now no longer loaded. So as you can see, another good font to install would be Indiana. It's got a nice block style with two colors that you can use, a foreground and a background. I will be teaching you this afternoon how to take this morning, how to take a font and turn it into two colors. Now, if there's any questions having to do with Font Navigator, please submit them through the chat area or the question and answer area, and we'll get those at the end of the seminar. I'm going to switch back now to Corel. And what we're going to do next is we're going to start actually doing some manipulation of text. In this case, on page 1, we were finished, and we converted it to curves so that we could save it and send it out. I'm going to go back to page 2, and we're going to discuss a little bit about how to create a two-color design. Two-color design with a shadow. We're going to talk about the difference between the outline tool and the contour tool. We're going to discuss how to make a contour and a drop shadow. And then we're going to talk about how to make a gap outline. Now, all these things that we're talking about are two colors. And you'll notice that with the word Michigan, there's not much space between the letters in order to put a second color. Normally, if I know I'm going to be doing two colors, I'm going to put some space between those letters to allow the second color or the drop shadow to look better. To do that, I'm going to do it by going to text with the text selected after you've typed it in and sized it. Go to text. Go to Format Text. You'll then find an area in here called Paragraph. Inside Paragraph, you've got spacing and you've got character. This allows you to change the space between the characters. If you pay attention to the lettering, I'm going to use a default that I like to use called 20%. I'm going to highlight through the 0.0, type in 20. I'm then going to click on OK. And if you watch this area right here, you'll see more space between the letters. See how I put more space between the letters? Now this will allow me to add a second color. Now that's just a default setting that I like to use. In some cases I might want more space or less space. I'm going to show you a tool that will allow you to make those adjustments on screen instead of going to a text window. With the text selected, click on the second tool down on the left hand side called the Shape tool. When you click on this tool, it allows you to get these what I call fish bones. This one points to the right, this one points down. I'm not exactly sure what the name of these little bars are, but I just call them fish bones. If I wanted to increase the amount of space, I would click on and hold the right set of fish bones and drag out. You'll see how it adds more space between the letters. If I wanted to get less space, I'd go the opposite. Okay, that looks about good there. Now, this downward arrow one is if you have two lines. Let's say you had Michigan on one line and State on the second line, and you wanted to put more space between the words Michigan and State. The downward fish arrow bones works like the one on the right. Coincidentally, in this mode of the Shape tool, you can treat each individual letter as an individual. For example, if I click on this little box right here next to the I can change the color of the individual letter. So I can go through and make them a rainbow of colors if I choose. I can also do this I can also add an outline to everything. If I choose my outline tool, go to my outline dialog box, choose, let's say, 0.028 inches. Always when you're using an outline pen, set all your outlines for behind fill and scale with image. I'll try to explain that later or in the next space when we get to more advanced tools. I'll click on OK. And if we zoom in, you will see that there's actually an outline in black around the letter H and the letter C. And whatever other letters were in here. Oh, I didn't have it selected. In order to do that, you have to select just the letter. Click on the word, choose your shape tool, select the letter. In this case, we'll remove the outline just on the letter H. And if I zoom in, doesn't look like the outline tool is working today. Sorry about that. But what I'm trying to point out here is there's another thing that you can use with the shape tool, and that is individuality. You can even click on these boxes and move letters around. So let's say you wanted to start to create a vertical look to your design, or you just wanted to scatter all the lettering around. So using the shape tool with your text allows you to do these different things. I'm going to undo all the things that I've done to this point. So I'm going to use this shortcut key because we're going to get back to creating two colors like we originally did. So, without going out on another tangent, using the what I call shape tool with the fish bones allows you to view on the screen different settings for gaps between letters or between words depending on which fish bones you use. Once you've given enough space for the second color, choose your pick tool and you can create your outline. In this case, we'll go to our outline tool. We'll choose a nice thick outline. We will also go to our color wheel. And pick a color. Now what I want to show you here, we've given everything a second color and an outline. What I want to show you here is why you want to set things behind fill and scale with image. Right now the outline tool is set for in front of the lettering. So it's actually doing an outline that's in front of the lettering. I'm going to go back to my outline tool and I'm going to click on behind fill and scale with image. And what I want you to watch is what that does with the letter and the outline that you're creating. You'll see that it now put the outline behind the actual lettering. And if you change sizes, it will keep the same thickness as you see here whenever you change sizes. That's why you want to check those two on. Sometimes people call me up and say, I put an outline on, but it really distorts my lettering. It's always that they haven't turned on behind fill and scale with image. Okay? So what we have here is a nice lettering with an outline or a second color. I'm going to move in here. Now, for our purposes and for most people's purposes, when they get these designs that look like this and they think they're two color, they're good for printing. If, for example, you are a screen printer and you want to create a foreground and background, the outline tool is a good tool to do that with. However, I don't usually let people continue using that tool for very long. Reason being is in this day and age of laser cutters, regular cutters, things of that nature, the cutters do not see an outline as a second color. And what I'm going to show you to do right now is how to view it, or your design, the way a cutter would see it. So if we go to View, and we go to Wireframe, I want you to watch the outside color here, the outside red color. You'll see that the cutter only sees the foreground. It does not see the background. Okay? So this is a problem for people when they're creating artwork that's got to go to a cutter. If you send files to us, for example, we're going to cut them. And if we don't see that second color, we can't create a second color for you. So I'm going to show you how to use a tool called the Contour tool which will allow you to create outlines that look exactly like this, but they're cuttable. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this MICH up so we can see it. I'm going to duplicate what we have and move it down. Right now in wireframe mode, the cutter still does not see the second color. So, I'm going to remove the outline. I use my right mouse button on the X at the top of my color chart to remove an outline. You can also use it to make an outline of color. Okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to create what's known as a contour. If we go to the if we go to the interactive toolbar, that's this bar right here, and if I click on the little arrow in the lower right hand corner, there's a tool which looks like boxes in boxes, and that's known as your interactive contour tool. I'm going to turn that on, and my changeable toolbar is then going to give me all the tools that are available for the contour tool. To create the contour, I want you to click on these first three buttons. There's one called Outside. So click on Outside. I want you to keep the number or set the number of steps to 1. I want you to change the offset, which is the thickness of the contour, to 0.11. Then I want you to go all the way over to the Fill tool, which is this tool right here, and change it to red. By doing this, we should achieve the same look that we have above. However, when we go to wireframe, I'm just using my shortcut tools here, otherwise I go to View and Wireframe. You'll see now that in wireframe mode, which is the way your cutter sees this design, I have a foreground and a background. Unlike when I use the outline tool to create it, the cutter will not see the outline. Again, I'm going to go back to my normal view. Once the design is created using the contour tool, I then need to separate the foreground from the background. To do that, you have to have the contour selected. I know I have it selected because it says Contour Group on Layer 1 at the bottom. I'll go to Arrange, and then I'll go to Break Contour Group Apart. This allows me to have a separate foreground and a separate background. Clicking on the Pick tool, I can actually pull the foreground away from the background. You cannot do that with the outlined design. So now that I have a foreground and a background, I can now convert everything to curves, creating my second page so I can keep it editable, and then send this out. Now before I do, I'm going to zoom into the H right here. Reason being is there's a little flaw in there that I see that I want to clean up. And if you can see right here, there's a little pinhole where the contour just didn't get all the way around everything. If I wanted to get rid of that, I could choose the background color, the contour. It'll say Curve on Layer 1, and you'll see I have some nodes in here. If I select the Shape tool, I can highlight those nodes, press the Delete key on my keyboard, and they'll go away. I'll go to my wireframe view again and see that it's not there. So I will go through the rest of the word now that I've found some changes that I'd like to get rid of. Maybe I'll find more. In this case, I see it in the letter G. Again, I'll select the Shape tool, highlight all the nodes I want to get rid of, delete them, and then continue to check the rest of the design. I don't see any more of them, so I'll zoom back out again. Go back to my normal view and save the design. Now, I've spent the last 20 minutes showing you how to create this contour, and I had not saved once. You need to make sure that while you're designing, you save as often as possible. If something would have happened to my computer, I would have lost all that work and had to do it over again. Okay, so what I've shown you now is how to use the contour tool, why to use the contour tool, how to create a two-color design, foreground and background. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is how to create a shadow effect. And I'm going to change some of the colors so that it's easier to see. I'm going to make the foreground red. I'm going to make the background black, since most drop shadows look better in black. Maybe. Try it again. Okay, click on the foreground. I know I have the foreground selected when it shows me black here, so I'll change that to red. Click off so nothing is selected. Click on the contour that I created. In this case, it shows me the red here. No, it says also I've got Indiana Solid selected, so I didn't actually select the contour. I now know I have the contour selected because it doesn't say Indiana Solid. I'll right mouse click. I will left mouse click on the black to fill. And now we've got the outline in black and the foreground in red. To create a simple drop shadow, I'm going to select the outline, duplicate it, go to Edit, Duplicate, and then I'm going to position the design or the drop shadow where I want it. I'm using my downward key on my keyboard. I'm going to hold the Shift key so that it goes faster, and then use the left arrow key. What I'm looking for is enough drop shadow to keep letters individual. Now, some people like to join the whole thing together, and you can do that. Just readjust your drop shadow until all the letters are joined together. So in this case, we've got an outline drop shadow in black and the foreground's in red. All I did was duplicate the contour and move the drop shadow to where I wanted it to be. However, there is a problem with this, and we're going to show you what that is by taking a look at this again the way a cutter would see it, utilizing our wireframe. View, wireframe. You'll see that the drop shadow is actually going through, or you're seeing a cut line go through the design of the other lettering. Now, to make this go away so that it's all one piece, we want to do what's known as weld. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first select the drop shadow. I'm going to hold my Shift key, select the contour that I created. You know you have both objects selected when it says 2 objects selected on layer 1. Also, when you have 2 objects selected, this tool becomes available, which is the weld tool. When I select the weld tool, it's going to weld both pieces together, and those lines that you saw that were going through the design will disappear. I'm going to go back to my enhanced view. It moved the shadow to the front, so now I need to move that to the back. Arrange, Order, to back. And now I have the same design, only I don't have the extra cut lines. I'm going to zoom back out again. So now what we've created is a two-color outline drop shadow. I'm now going to go through the next thing, which will allow me to show you how to create a gap outline utilizing the same contour tool that we used originally. Again, I'm going to choose the word Michigan, and I know I have it selected when it says Artistic Text Indiana Solid. Duplicate it. I'm going to use a shortcut, Control D, and I'm going to bring this down. Now we're going to go back to our contour tool. Choosing the contour tool, I'm going to make a few changes. I still want the contour to go to the outside of my lettering. I now want to change this to 2 steps. I'm going to leave the offset set to 0.11, and I'm going to change the color now to black. At this point, I'm going to go to Arrange, and I'm going to break the contour group apart. Let me zoom in to the MICH so we can see everything. You'll notice now that I have a foreground, which says Artistic Text at the bottom. Then I have 2 contours like we created the first time. I've got a middle and I've got an outside. What I want to do is select the outsidemost contour. It says I've got group of 2 objects on layer 1. Then I'm going to go to Arrange. I'm going to go to Ungroup. This will make all these pieces separate now. But without clicking anywhere, I want to go back to Arrange, and I want to go to Combine. What this does is it provides me the foreground, a gap where the shirt will show through or whatever you're using, and an outline. Let me draw a box around some of these letters and do a color change for you so that you can see that that indeed is a gap. So I've created a box. I'm going to go to Arrange, Order to Back, and you'll see how the background color shows through the gap. So now I've created what's known as a gap outline. You can also utilize a gap outline with the same color as the foreground by simply selecting it and changing the color. So what I've showed you here is how to create lettering, how to create a 2-color with a foreground and a background. I want to remind you, do not use your outline color to create that color, but use the tool called the contour tool. I then showed you how to use that same design to elaborate on it, creating what's known as an outline drop shadow. And then I showed you how to create a gap outline utilizing, again, the contour tool. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to create what's known, I'm going to move everything up and out of the way, as a vertical arch. I'm going to start with something very simple. Again, I'm going to utilize the word Michigan. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up down here at the bottom of the page, centered right here. To do that, I'm going to go to Layout. I'm going to go to, just drew a blank, Arrange, Align and Distribute, and this time I'm going to turn the Align and Distribute tool on. And it'll allow me to put it at the bottom of the page, utilizing the edge of the page, and then center it from left to right. Click on Apply, and it does it all for me. With it centered this way, I can now create what's known as a vertical arch. I'm going to use a different interactive tool this time. Again, going to my interactive tools. In the lower right hand corner, I'm going to click on, and I'm going to choose the one called Interactive Envelope Tool. Now, if any of you out there have a program like DrawMate, you're used to seeing all their different text effects that they do. This is the tool that DrawMate uses to create text effects. So I'm going to show you how to use it without needing DrawMate. Now, in the envelope tool, up at the top again, you're going to get several tools to use with this tool. The only one you really have to do for this, because we're going to be using what's known as a single arc mode, click on single arc mode, and now you've got these grab handles that are on your design. If you click and hold with the left mouse button, you'll see how you can create an arc. But in this case, we want both the bottom and the top to arc. So what I'm going to do is make sure again that single arc is selected. I'm going to click and hold with the left mouse button and start dragging up. But at the same token on my keyboard, I'm going to press the Control key, and that allows both the top and the bottom at the same time to move up. You'll notice in the middle where I put that 1.5 line that when I have the middle of my design up 1.5, I've actually created an arc 1.5 tall based on the word Michigan. Now, you'll notice that the N doesn't touch the bottom and the edge of the M doesn't touch the bottom line. To make this a true 1.5 tall, I will select the bottom node, again holding my Control key and pulling down until the bottom of that N touches the bottom line. And then I'll do the same thing with the M. Now, utilizing this tool with the different pulls, you can create different looks. If you wanted to create a bridge effect, you could simply pull this line up and start to create a bridge. Now, that will be done at a later date. We'll show you how to do that. But for now, I want to review with you the vertical arch. I'm going to go back to the original setting. After the design is placed at the bottom and centered, you're going to choose the interactive envelope tool out of your interactive tools. Make sure the design is selected. Click on single arc. Go to the center node, pull upward, hold the Control key and move up. Let go. Now to bring down these two ends, simply hold the Control, or click on the node, hold the Control key and pull it down. Same with the other side. Click on the Control and move it down. And now you've got the arc finished, and you can create any of the other effects that we've shown you from this point. So, hopefully that shows you how to create an arc, and you can go from there to create the outlines, your outline 2 color, your outline with a drop shadow, and the vertical arch, the gap outline. At this point, I've kind of covered everything without going too much further. I'd like to find out if there's any questions out there. So if you hold on for just 1 second, I'm going to open up the floor. First, I want to hear from Dave to see if there's any questions that have been stated so we can get those covered. Dave, whenever you're available, if you can join in.
Hey, Ron, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay.
coming over the chat.
Okay.
So I guess if anybody wants to just unmute themselves and ask questions here.
We can go ahead and do that. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, press the number 6 on your keypad. And if you have any questions, now would be a good time to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you how to create the outlines and drop shadows one more time using the vertical arch. Okay, it sounds like nobody has any questions, so...
I'm sorry, this is Marcia.
Hi, Marcia.
Yes, when you made the art, I really like the idea that you can do the bottom and the top at the same time. I've been doing just one at a time, and sometimes our letters aren't all the same height.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, that should help. Again, just remember to use your control key when you're making the move.
Okay, yeah. Well, I didn't realize that was there.
Hey, we did learn something today.
I did.
Excellent, excellent. Is there anybody else out there? Okay, what I'll do then for the next 10 minutes is I'm going to quickly run through how to create the contours again, how to create the contour drop shadow, and how to create the the gap outline for the vertical arch that we've selected. Let me move this stuff out of the way. And I'm going to do this quickly, but we've gone through all these processes once or maybe twice already. So, I want to center this on my page. So I'm going to go to Arrange. Somebody's not muted. You might want to mute check. I think it's Dave. Are you muted, Dave? Okay. Okay, the alignment tool. Go to Align and Distribute. This time I'm going to choose center of page. It'll put it automatically center, top and bottom. Okay, and that puts it into the center of my page. I'm going to use the contour tool. Start off creating a contour. In this case, I want it to go to the outside. I only want one step, and I want it in black. All the settings, as you can see, are already preset from the last time that I did it, so you should be able to, unless you want to make changes, go ahead and just use your defaults as you normally use them. Okay? After the contour is created, I'm going to go to Arrange, and I'm going to break the contour group apart. Choosing my Pick tool, I'm going to click on the contour that I've created. You know you have the contour selected when you see the black color here. What we've got here is the first one that we did, which was a 2-color black outline. Okay. I'm going to duplicate the contour that we created, Control D, shortcut keys, and then I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to position the drop shadow where I would like it. When you have it positioned where you want it, hold your Shift key and select the contour that you created, and we need to weld these two pieces together. When you have two objects selected on one layer, the weld will become available. I'll click on Weld. And what happened was I didn't have the right one selected. See, even I can do this wrong. Okay, I have the drop shadow selected. Now I can check to make sure I have it by changing a color quickly. Okay, I've got the drop shadow. I'll undo what I did. Hold my Shift key. I've selected what I think is the outline. I'll change the colors again to make sure I've got them all selected. Then I will weld them together. Now when you weld them, it pushes that design to the front. We have to go to Arrange, Order, to Back, to move it to the back of the design. Now, in this case, I'm going to view in wireframe and make sure I don't have any pieces that I don't want to cut, any small pieces. Usually anything under about 1/8 of an inch, I try to get rid of. Okay? In this case, it looks pretty good, so I would be finished. The last step that I need to do, I still have to do a gap outline for you, so I'm duplicating this. But if this design was finished, I have to select the text. I usually like to copy everything to a second page, and then we want to convert this to curves, because right now we're in artistic tech mode. Don't forget to convert things to curves. Okay. I'm going to get rid of that background that we created now. And now I'm going to create the gap outline. Contour tool with the object selected. So, make sure that it's set to outside. Set the number of steps to 2. Change the thickness or the size that you want. In this case, we're going to leave it to black. After it's created the 2 contours, I go to Arrange, break contour group apart, select my pick tool, click off so nothing is selected, choose the contours that I created. Once I've got it selected, down at the bottom it'll say Group of Objects on Layer 1. I then go to Arrange, Ungroup. Without clicking off, I go back to Arrange and Combine. And now I produce the gap outline. So as you can see, when we're creating things, learning the basics helps. But then once you have the basics down, you can put it in any format that you want and then create a 2-color design, a 2-color with a drop shadow, gap outline, anything that you'd like. So at this point, this really ends the basics of Corel 1 and 2 color lettering. I've gone through and shown you how to do all this. Now, some of the things that you're going to want to review. Again, I'm going to go back to what we've gone over and the different tools that we've looked at. You always want to remember to save your design and save it often. Today we've gone through these tools. We've talked about all of them. The one we haven't finished yet is vector image versus bitmap image. And I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about that right now. These tools we have touched on a little bit. I showed you the rectangle tool and I showed you the weld tool. Let me go back and show you what a bitmap image is and how to tell the difference between them. Okay, most people are familiar with bitmap images if they're dealing with images that go on to the website. The website, you hear things like JPEGs, GIFs, those are all considered bitmaps. And bitmaps are not seen well by a cutter. And in order to utilize artwork to the best of your abilities, you're going to want it in what's known as a vector file. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these 2 images, I'm going to convert one of them to a bitmap, leave the other one as a vector. Whenever you create in CorelDRAW with CorelDRAW tools, you're usually creating a vector object. I'm going to take this word Michigan and I'm going to convert it to a bitmap. I'm going to go to bitmap, convert to bitmap. I'm going to leave it at 300 dpi and click on OK. Now, after it's done making this a bitmap, you'll see that it still kind of looks the same. I've got red and black, I've got all the sharp corners, but when I zoom in, I see like a jaggedness on the edge.